Okay, these coming 2 weeks, we're going to talk a little bit more about hazards. Uh, One of the hazards we're going to talk a little bit about is icing. And guess what? This little chart right here, relative humidity versus temperature, where icing can occur. You're going to get a question about that in the test. I'll tell you right now. There'll be one coming right out of this chart. So remember where you found it. And icing is one of the major hazards for the smaller aircraft. I know even big aircraft can have icing problems because when we were discussing, when I was working, there was a significant delay occurring up in the JFK, LaGuardia, New York City area, and it was due to icing. The problem was there was a layer of below freezing temperatures at about 10,000 to 15,000 feet with a deck of clouds, and the temperatures were just below freezing. So what they were doing was they were having pilots coming in, the aircraft were having to circle in that elevation range. If you went a little bit above it, you actually got warmer. But for whatever reason, the air traffic control people decided that was the elevation they were going to have them circle at. And aircraft kept getting iced up and would have to suggest that they either move whatever to get out of the icing. For some reason, the air traffic control and the weather service weren't talking too well that day, and they wound up with a lot of aircraft having significant icing problems that delayed departures in and out. So yes, there are layers that will have icing in the atmosphere, and by knowing approximately where they may occur, how to work around them, you can get some help with that. So here is an icing map from the Air Weather Center out in Kansas City. They have a lot of cool stuff, and this is just analysis right now. Notice if you're in the southeast, there's a lot of icing going on. So if you were to look at a weather map, how does this relate to what you typically see in looking at weather maps? Well, there's a cold high pressure system right here. I mean, we're talking cold too, because temperatures are in the teens and single digits up here in Canada. And it's bridging down along the east coast of the United States. Low pressure all the way down along the Gulf Coast. But the area north, remember, warm air rides over it. We wind up with a big area of low clouds, and there's a deck of icing in there. If you were to look at a sounding, you would say, oh, well, most areas probably don't have too much icing. Well, I wanted to show you an area here a little bit north of where you would expect to find this. But this is Blacksburg, Virginia. Notice the temperature falls below freezing at an elevation of around 3,000 to 4,000 feet, maybe 5,000 feet, we'll say. Right in here. So if you're flying at 5,000 to 6,000 feet, you would be literally having probably some super cooled water vapor and water droplets that are going to condense on your aircraft, causing icing. Yes, you all have equipment to handle at least light to moderate icing. But if you stay in the deck long enough, notice you go up to drier air above it, or you go above freezing down below it and drier air. So you could get away from this icing by either even going up or down. These are all things that are important to know about icing. The next area you're going to cover in your charts, we're going to talk a little bit more about, is dealing with different ceilings. Each individual has the experience level and the ability to handle different ceilings, different weather conditions. You've got to judge how well you are, how much experience you have, how much knowledge you have. And yes, most of you are training to be professional pilots. So yeah, I want you to have a lot of knowledge. But when you're flying into some areas, you're going to run into IFR conditions. One of the best things to know is, okay, if I'm going in this route and I am only a VFR rated pilot, what does that mean? Visual flight rules above 3,000 feet visibility, and ceiling, and over 3 miles visibility. I'm good to go if I have that. But say I'm flying into the mountains, and all of a sudden that ceiling has gone from 3,000 down to 1,500, down to 1,000. If I am not instrument rated, I can get into that air, into those clouds, and get disoriented and wind up having a major accident. So, knowing which way out of that situation as well is important. Maybe if I went north, I would run out of those low ceilings, or maybe sometimes I got to go south. In this day, we know the low and the clouds are in this area. So, yeah, if I am flying on the northern edge of this, I know that if I'm running into lower clouds, maybe this stuff just going a little further north than they anticipated. Well, then I better move north to get out of that conditions. If you're flying into Atlanta today, it's IFR, low ceilings, you're going to have issues with air traffic control because you got to keep further separation between your aircraft. So yes, all of that goes into understanding. And when you have low clouds, which are typically behind a warm front, guess what? When that warm front passes through, and I gave you a question about this in your labs, there was a warm front that went through the east coast of the U.S., and I had you looking at National Airport. National Airport ceilings were running about 100 feet to 200 feet. All of a sudden, they jumped up over 3,000 feet. When that happened, it was a warm front moving north. The wind shifted. It pushed that low air, damp air out, and it allowed you to get into the much better conditions in the humid air. Yeah, you could possibly get some thunderstorms later in that air, which may be another issue, but at least you got rid of the visibility issues and the ceiling issues you were having. So all of these are parts of things that you need. I'm sure you'll be briefed on it. Corporations have their own briefing services now. And yes, I don't understand what they use. We used to do pilot weather briefings in the Weather Service, but that got taken away. The FAA does that, or through private sectors now. But all these things are something take into mind when you're making your route, when you're flying in there. Be aware that these hazards are out there for you, and yes, they can cause you problems. Finally, we're going to just discuss lightning a little bit. Just images with lightning nowadays as goes. On a visible image, you can see all that low clouds down there. So we'll just bring it up here a second again. As my cursor wants to act up. But what you see with the clouds, basically, you're seeing the flashes. And these flashes are different colors. The more red they are, the more flashes you're going to see. Hope you got a little bit out of this. Let me know what you have any questions. I'll talk to you later.